Is the United States supporting al-Qaeda in Syria? Reality Check looked at a report by Reuters last week that indicates the answer is yes. So why did an Irish journalist claim that Ben was supporting propaganda in support of Syria's leader? Ben has the Reality Check you won't see anywhere else.
It was Sunday when Anonymous was able to hack the Reuters news service Twitter account. Well, as part of that, they tweeted our Reality Check based on a Reuters article that the Obama administration is secretly providing support to opposition forces in Syria. Here's a clip from that report. But the big question here that no one is asking, who are these rebels that the U.S. is supporting? Well, buried at the bottom of that Reuters article, quote, recent news reports from the region have suggested that the influence and numbers of Islamist militants, some of them connected to al-Qaeda or its affiliates, have been growing among Assad's opponents. In response, a pro-opposition reporter from the Irish Times Online, Mary Fitzgerald, called our story pro-Assad propaganda. So is that true? Are we shilling for Assad? Well, maybe we're just shilling for the truth. Fact number one. There is no question that al-Qaeda fighters are part of the opposition forces attempting to overthrow Syria's government. From the New York Times, July 25th. One Qaeda operative, a 56-year-old known as Abu Thuha, who lives near Kirkuk in Iraq, spoke to an Iraqi reporter from the New York Times on Tuesday. Quote, we have experience now fighting the Americans and more experience now with the Syrian revolution, he said. Our big hope is to form a Syrian Iraqi Islamic State for all Muslims and then announce our war against Iran and Israel and free Palestine. Well, we already know that much of the opposition in Libya to overthrow Gaddafi were al-Qaeda fighters. But if we look at history, none of this is anything new. Fact number two, the creation of al-Qaeda wasn't Islamic fundamentalism. It was the CIA. The Mujahideen was created by the CIA to cause problems for the Soviets. You might say that's crazy talk, right? Here's Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
To be fair, we had helped to create the problem we're now fighting. How? Because when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, we had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of Mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else to go after the Soviets inside Afghanistan.
So it's not a conspiracy theory, it's history. And it's history that's being repeated in Libya and now in Syria. But there is a bigger problem here, one that every American should be questioning. We're fighting al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, but we're also bombing al-Qaeda targets in Pakistan and in Yemen. And as we do that, something occurs known as collateral damage. Hundreds of civilians in Yemen have been killed in just the first half of 2012 by U.S. airstrikes aimed at al-Qaeda fighters. From NPR. In the mid-May strike in Jar, for example, Yemeni officials said 2 militants and 8 civilians were killed. According to residents we spoke with, no militants were killed, but there were 17 to 26 civilian deaths. That was just one of more than 40 documented strikes this year alone. By the way, in that picture right there, that boy is 15 years old, and he was wounded while watching his father and brother die in one of those airstrikes. So what you need to know tonight is heavy. Our government is bombing sites around the world in an ongoing war with al-Qaeda. In Iraq, where al-Qaeda had no presence before the U.S. war, al-Qaeda is now thriving. The same al-Qaeda, yes, created by the U.S. government in order to harm the Soviets. And today, at least 13,000 civilians in Afghanistan are dead as a result of that war with al-Qaeda. So with all respect to Ms. Fitzgerald from the Irish Times, this is not propaganda. Rather, it is the question that every American should be demanding answers on from Congress and from this president. Why are we giving al-Qaeda fighters money and weapons to overthrow yet another government in the Middle East? Today, our government claims they're freeing the people of Syria. Tomorrow, if history tells us anything, we will be killing and wounding civilians in airstrikes and then referring to them as collateral damage in a war with an enemy who we brought to power. And that is Reality Check.
If you'd like to make your voice heard on the story, head over to Ben's Facebook page. Find it by searching Ben Swann.